almost 100 years later, Sir Henry Parkes settled on its banks. They are two men whose public service helped to shape a nation. One gave Australia its name, and the other inspired its federation. In the years between Flinders and Parkes, bushrangers plied their trade along Dog Trap Road, and convicts built the historic Lansdowne Bridge. When the railway came to town 100 years ago, it brought with it a land boom. Paddocks were subdivided and suburbs born. And after the Second World War, when Australia opened its arms to the people of the world, many settled here. Blaxland is now one of the most culturally diverse places in Australia. Working people from 130 different countries, speaking more than 60 different languages, call it home. It's a place of churches, mosques and temples, where different languages grace our shops, and our homes welcome everyone, no matter where they were born, how they worship, or what language they speak. This is where the new Australia is being forged, a courageous, cosmopolitan, cohesive Australia, where being Australian is not about where you come from, but where you're going. A place famous for sporting heroes, people like Steve Waugh, John Conrads, Lenny Pascoe and Jeff Thompson, and a place brimming with unsung heroes. People like Jard Dibb, the principal of Punchbowl Boys High School. A place threatened with closure 4 years ago because violence and disruption was so bad, parents stopped sending their kids there. The school was failing. But under his leadership, a lot of hard work has turned that around. This year's Year 7 is the biggest in 13 years. Enrolments have sprung up by 35% in the last 2 years. Literacy improvements are 3.5 times the state average.
Fantastic.
Another local hero is Mark Newey. Mark's a real estate agent. Last year, he helped 8 families fend off a bank that wanted to throw them out on the street when the owner of the block of units defaulted on his mortgage. Mark fought for these people and convinced the bank to let them stay in their homes. Not everyone is fortunate enough to have Mark Newey on their side. Last year, 300 families in Blaxland lost their homes. More than anywhere else in Australia. More than ever before. Mr. Speaker, this is the real and unravelling legacy of the Howard government. Blaxland is the mortgage stress capital of Australia. I was speaking to a real estate agent in Cabramatta last week who told me that he has 4 repossessed houses on his books. That's just one agent, just 1 month. The sheriff at Bankstown Court tells me that there are about 30 repossessions about to occur in the next 2 weeks. And young families who sell up before the sheriff arrives find the value of their home has plummeted. The median house price in Blaxland has fallen by 16% in the last 3 years. Many now have negative equity in their homes. That means they owe the bank more than the house is worth, making the threat of repossession all the more frightening. The last housing boom was great for some, but it's made life tougher for others. The rate of home ownership is dropping, so is the proportion of first home buyers. I want to make sure the great Australian dream still means something to future generations, where a mortgage is an investment, not a trap. It's a challenge for any family to build or buy a house. It's just as big a challenge for governments to turn rows of houses into a working city, to build infrastructure. 70% of Australians live in our major cities. They are the engine rooms of our economy. Improving the performance of our economy means improving the performance of our cities, making them work. I've seen firsthand how important good infrastructure really is to our economy. For the last 4 years, I've worked for Transurban, the Australian company behind the successful Westlink M7 project. I saw the M7 and its 144 bridges rise from the ground and the positive impact that it's had on local families and businesses. The M7's not just a road, it's a magnet for economic development. Even before the M7 opened, some of Australia's biggest companies flocked to relocate along its corridor. In the last 3 years, it's helped to create 10,000 new jobs and generated almost $3 billion in economic development. It's a good example of what good infrastructure can do: fix the bottlenecks in our cities and the bottlenecks in our economy. improve people's lives and make business more efficient, which helps us to tackle inflation. The Business Council of Australia estimates we have a $90 billion infrastructure deficit. To tackle this task, like many others, we must bring a willingness to work together, working in partnership with state and local governments, with the private sector and with the community, to renew our nation-building zeal, to build infrastructure we need, not just for today, but for tomorrow. On the 20th of January 1830, my great-great-great-great-grandfather arrived in Sydney Cove, in leg irons. Thomas Clare was transported to Australia from Dublin. His heinous crime? Stealing books. Well, we've come a long way since then. He was sent to the other side of the world as punishment for wanting to read. Now it's our national priority. It's certainly the top priority at my old primary school, Cabramatta Public. The principal, John Rice, tells me 80% of kids starting kindergarten speak little or no English. Few can spell their name. But give it 3 years and their literacy and numeracy skills are at or above the state average. What a powerful message this sends. Our education system is the most powerful cause for good in this country. Run well, it can ensure every child has the opportunity to reach their potential. It's the great equaliser in an unequal world. If we're serious about equal opportunity for men and women, for rich and poor, for Indigenous and multicultural Australia, then let it begin with the youngest Australians. Let us be the government that again invests in public education. Let us be the government that ensures postcodes do not determine opportunity. Let us be the government that recognises the importance of teachers to learning outcomes. And let us be the government that unleashes the potential of the next generation. We start by giving every child access to quality preschool. The impact across Australia will be profound. The impact in Blaxland will be greater still. In the last few months, I've visited all 52 schools in Blaxland. What I found is a microcosm of our community and a window to its future. The number of children who currently go to preschool in Blaxland is well below the national average. Retention rates for high school are also lower. We need to fix this, not just for their sake, but for ours. Our future prosperity rests on their shoulders. If every child in Blaxland has access to preschool, they'll have the same chance as other children and they'll perform better at school. If they stay longer at school, they'll earn more and add billions to our economy. And if they get a degree or a trade certificate, they'll give this country the skills we need to compete in a shrinking and more competitive world. It's for all these reasons that we need an education revolution, and places like Blaxland need it most of all. Mr. Speaker, I promise to make the most of this extraordinary opportunity, to be worthy of this place and those who sent me to it, to serve with a fraction of the courage of my grandparents and all of their commitment. John Curtin inspired their generation, and my grandfathers inspire me, not to defend a nation, but to defend the humble hope of a family home, to protect basic rights of working people and their dignity at work, to turn a new page in the great Labor tradition of nation building, to invest again in our youngest Australians, and to build a better Australia for the grandchildren of tomorrow. As the poet Alexander Smith said, a man doesn't plant a tree for himself. He plants it for posterity. Our great responsibility is to govern not just for this generation, but the ones that follow. The pace of change and the challenges ahead demand it. Here in this place is where we can meet these challenges. This is where we can turn the Australia of our imagination into something real. Australia needs more people ready to serve and more voices to create ripples of hope. That is why I am here. That is why I am a member of the Australian Labor Party. And that is what I will do on behalf of the people of Blaxland. Thank you.